We're back at it. Who would have guessed? We are live again. It is Sunday, April 27th, 2025, from the city beautiful Orlando, Florida. And if you're seeing this part, you're probably watching a replay. So we're going to give it a minute, see who can join our wonderful Sunday morning chat. Just thought we'd get on here nice. The color is really cool looking. Tell I'm really good grief. Like, what is going on here? Okay. All right. The hair is awesome. Of course, it's barely been combed. It's really just a Sunday morning, guys, right? Pajamas, whatever, still in bed. You're like, oh, this guy's live again. We're just going to hang out and talk. I have no agenda. I have no big news. So if you're looking for that, you can click elsewhere. I just literally wanted to hang out with like-minded folks, see what's on your mind. Maybe play a record or two. I was thinking about that. I was like, what record should I put on right now? I couldn't think of anything. Well, we can always add that. So, hey, Todd, welcome in. Also, thought we would do one early. We were live last night. We did a giveaway, and that was a late night, 10 p.m. Eastern. And so we do it 10 a.m. I actually didn't plan this out, but it's almost exactly 12 hours later, 10 p.m. last night and 10 a.m. this morning. So we'll see. We got 5 folks on here so far, and only one person's giving a shout out. So hit yourself up in the chat and say where you're watching from. Also, a thumbs up on the way in the door if you wouldn't mind, just to let YouTube know that we're doing a show would be cool. And yeah, maybe talk about some 8-tracks. I haven't talked about 8-tracks in a while, just to have something to talk about. So I I do have an 8-track player now. The whole origin story of how I got into 8-tracks, I think it's kind of interesting because I had no like emotional connection to 8-tracks whatsoever. I purely, how is your Studebaker boombox working? I've got 2 of them. So I've got the silver one that's the CD, has a CD player. And then I've got the bigger red one that has a CD player and a tape deck. They both work fine. They both work really good. They're just, it's hard to describe it until you have your hands on it. It doesn't have the same build quality that like an old Sony does. And I do have my Sony boombox too, which I love, my 1991 Sony. But it is, if I feel like if it's owned by an adult, it's going to be fine. And they do sound good and they're fun. They're just really, really fun. I love them a lot. I'm glad I have them. Just jumped on here, Fast Hunter. We just started. We literally started 4 minutes ago. And we're just shooting the breeze. What was the issue with yours, Todd? I forget what happened. Anyway, so 8-tracks. You guys were like early on in the show's existence. A lot of folks on the channel were like, you've got to get into 8-tracks. They're so fun and all this stuff. And I had never had an 8-track player, any of that stuff. Well, I was doing a deal, a Craigslist deal for a little reel-to-reel machine. And the person also had an 8-track player. It's off camera, but it's back here. It's a little Sound Design brand, very basic 8-track player. And I've done videos on it, so you can go look at that. But, I mean, it doesn't record. Somebody gave me a Panasonic recorder, and I just couldn't get it working right. But that's okay. I don't need to record onto 8-track. So that's a very confusing thing. How do you even know where to start? But what's weird about this, there's no line output on it. So how do you hook it up to a system like I've got hooked up now? Because the back of it just has amplified terminals. There were speakers that originally came with it. So I've got the headphone jack with a little adapter, a 1/4-inch to 1/8-inch adapter. And then I've got the volume at like 30% to get right about to line level. And it works good. It works really good. And then it's like 8-tracks. You know, when I think of 8-tracks, I think of country music and Elvis. And it seems like, and it's still, it's a stereotype, but it holds true. There's an element of truth. It seems like there's a lot of Elvis and country music when it comes to 8-tracks. So I initially, you know, got quite a few 8-tracks, eventually thinned out the collection a little bit, and really have what are some interesting pieces now that you don't usually see on 8-track, like Broadway music. You know, that's cool. My Fair Lady. That's a good show. My grandpa said that the movie My Fair Lady was his favorite movie of all time. Of course, I showed this around Christmas time. Merry Christmas, Bing Crosby classic on 8-track. Love it. I was given a gift by a viewer of Beatles Red Album, one of the tapes on 8-track. And most of these have had the splices reinforced or replaced and the pads replaced. Let's see what else. Also, I have personally experienced the difficulty of working on an 8-track tape. Here's an RCA cartridge. I think this was a gift as well. Very cool. But the RCA tapes were like, it was really hard to work on them because they're like glued shut. I don't think they have screws. And so you have to it's really hard to pop them open without breaking something. And then I have experienced working on these, like trying to open them up and destroy tapes before. It's quite frustrating. It's actually quite frustrating. And then you always hear me talk about my friend Fardamark, who's given me some custom mixtapes. So he's taken old shells that were in clean condition, loaded them with new tape, and put mixtapes on there. He even made me a custom Patsy Cline one, which is cool. This is super neat. This doesn't exist in real life. It's a complete one-of-one thing. With just a mixtape of live recordings. Even says Recordology on there. Like the Decca stereo tape logo at the top. This is just fun stuff. Just fun stuff like that. It sounds good, too. My player's kind of loud. You can hear like the motor. Back when I had the glass door to this cabinet, it was good because the door would kind of silence. It would kind of mute the motor noise from the 8-track player. The problem is that when we moved from Colorado to Florida in 2023, this used to be on the left-hand side and now it's on the right. So the door was opening the wrong way. So I ended up, I was looking. I think you could reverse the door, but I ended up just taking the door off. So there you go. 8 tracks. I don't pick up an 8-track very often. I mean, if I saw one that was every once in a while when I'm at a record shop or mostly I find them at like antique malls and stuff. Hey, Scott. Well, have a great day at church. That's awesome. I appreciate it, Scott. And if you get a chance later, maybe watch the replay if you want. But have a blessed day. Fast Hunter, I agree. The notification system is like, I've given up on it. People that are subscribed, have notifications turned on. They still get like nothing. Some people get them all. It's hard to say. Todd says, mine would play, then for no reason get distorted on CD. That's weird. Is it still within the return window? You might just have a bad unit. I have a Hitachi from the 70s in storage. Oh, nice. Those are cool. I'm going to be buying like 6 records this upcoming Wednesday. What are you looking for? And why do you know exactly how many you're going to get and when? Tell me the story behind that. Hey, John, welcome in. I'm so glad you guys could join. This is fun. We're just hanging out, having fun. Oh, man. Trying to think of what is going on. So, yeah, we got some shows planned. A lot of things up in the air right now. Not up in the air. It sounds like it's iffy. But we just have a lot of things planned that are coming to fruition and working on show ideas and things. Products we're waiting on delivery to review. Always out there looking for what would be a cool show. And always like to, get your suggestions. What do you want to see? A lot of people say, hey, could you take a look at the so-and-so turntable? And if we can, we'll go out and buy one of those and review it. It's a lot of fun. And that's what I understand, Fast Hunter, is that it's past the return window, Todd. I'm sorry. Fast Hunter, yeah, they were pretty big in the U.S., but in the U.K. and in Europe, not as much. Which is kind of interesting. And it's weird. It was a weird thing. From what I can tell, it was really geared towards automotive use, taking music in the car. My dad said his only 8-track player was a car unit that he had. And the idea of taking it inside, they did make hi-fi units, obviously, and little stereos and things, but it was primarily an automotive format. I think the idea is that you would have your records at the house and you would have 8-tracks in the car primarily. That being, and then a lot of people they're very negatively associated, even over here. The people nobody looks back and says, "Oh, 8-tracks, that was the format I loved." Most people are like, "Ooh, 8-tracks, those were terrible." Most everybody says 8-tracks were terrible. And similar to cassettes too, because there's not a lot of people that say, "Man, cassettes, that was the good days of audio." And I think that's one reason why CDs were so popular, is because people had a very negative perception about cassettes. And the reason why I'm grouping cassettes and 8-tracks together is I think that the perceptions about them kind of stemmed from the same source. And what I mean by that is that mostly their use out of the home led to a less than desirable experience. One of the big reasons is that people would have them in the car. And in the car, they would be exposed to sun. The tapes could melt, warp, dry out, and they would just leave them in the players. And the players, there were so many cheap players. Spark-O-Matic, I'm looking at you. I remember you could go, the place to get the cheapest car stereos of all time were like auto parts stores, like AutoZone and Checker Auto Parts. And you would go in there and they would have these no-name or Spark-O-Matic brand tape players, sometimes even CD players. And the watt, it was like 5 watts per channel instead of, the typical 30 to 40 or whatever. And I think that a lot of people just had a bad, experience with them and didn't treat their tapes right. But what's interesting with both formats is they make very good hi-fi formats. They just don't have the appeal that vinyl has right now. And I know some people are into cassettes, and it's got kind of a mini resurgence happening. I don't think anybody's in, there's no 8-track resurgence. There's people that like 8-tracks, but there's no movement. You know what I mean? I don't think the RIAA is tracking any 8-track sales because they're only made new in novelty form. I know Dolly Parton had one recently, but anyway, if done right with proper equipment and mostly tapes that were kept clean or are being kept clean, they can sound really good. They can sound really, really good, and especially cassette tape. I've got my Yamaha Natural Sound KX390 tape deck. Talked about it a little bit on the live last night. It's a single well deck. It was like 1996-ish. It's a beautiful machine. It is not a Dolby S. It's not like the pinnacle of cassette. It wasn't the super high-end model. It's somewhere in the middle. And it is just an absolute perfect tape machine. There's nothing wrong with it. I put a tape on there. I don't even use Dolby. I'm not against Dolby, but I'm not a Dolby user myself, so I don't care about the modern decks, the We Are Rewind and the FIO. I love them. They don't have Dolby. I don't use Dolby. Dolby's not licensing their noise reduction anymore. But even though the Yamaha does as B and C, it doesn't need it. It's got an HX Pro headroom extension on the record side. It's got an MX filter for the tape or for the radio recording. It is just a phenomenal machine. You record from a good source on this thing on a decent tape stock. Sounds perfect. Sounds really, really good. And if you think that it's a little bright, it's got a play trim adjustment. You just back that off a little bit. If it's sounding a little dull, you just turn it up. I usually have it at about the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock position. And you can't tell me that doesn't sound super hi-fi. And the 8-track, it's not as refined, but because there's no controls. I mean, it's you have a tone control. I think the capacitors are probably due for a refurb or replacement because it's a little dull sound, a little muddy sounding if it's the tone is in the middle. But I just have the tone pegged at the high end, and it brightens it up to the point where it's pretty neutral. I think it sounds pretty good. Besides that, I got a balance control and a volume control. Oh, yeah, and you can manually switch between tracks. And it does sense and automatically switch tracks as well. Oh, that's so cool, Fast Center. I'm grateful to hear that you're doing well like that. That's great. Oh, well, you deserve it, man. I'm really grateful that to hear that you have an opportunity to do that. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy the well-deserved experience. Yeah, more sound design. Yeah, this sound design, it's funny because it tries to emulate the look of the time. So this is like 70, 76, 77, right at the almost the pinnacle of 8-tracks. It's got a brushed aluminum finish, the wood grain cabinet. It's very 70s. I don't like that aesthetic. Techmode really likes that brushed aluminum look. I'm not as into that. I'm more of a black plastic crap kind of a guy. I like the just black on black, blacked out plastic look of the 90s. That's, to me, that was the best. But yeah, sound design. I think sound design, tell me if I'm wrong, wasn't sound design the same company as GPX, also known as Grand Prix? I'm not 100% sure about that. Never heard of, well, maybe I've heard of Morse. But yeah, Sparkomatic is the one that sounds so cheap. Sounds Sparkomatic. Oh yeah, and that reminds me. So I was at a gas station the other day. We went up to Ocala yesterday and went canoeing with gators, and it was wild. It was an incredible time. The water was so crystal clear, it was like tap water. You could see 30 feet down in the water. We got to see a shipwreck. We were boating over the shipwreck that was from a movie, 1959 movie, ironically called "Don't Give Up the Ship" or something like that, with Jerry Lewis, which I had never heard of. I asked my dad, "Have you heard of it?" He loves that stuff. He's like, "Oh yeah, he knows that one." But I have to go back and look at that. But there was a shipwreck. It was really, really cool. Anyway, on this trip up there to Ocala and Silver Spring, we stopped by a gas station, and when I was walking over to the bathroom, they had like one of those miniature electronics. It's very weird. Like, have you ever been to a kind of a half truck stoppy gas station? How they'll have weird stuff, like they'll have stuff for truckers, like there'll be like little collectible things too, like little glass figurines and all this very bizarre stuff. But what really got me was the electronics. They had some like CB radios and I think AM FM radios too, but they looked like they were straight out of the 70s. They had all this chrome. They had toggle switches. It was like something I haven't seen new ever. But look at this stuff, and I would swear, oh yeah, that's 76, 77, 78, and it was brand new. And what gets me is one of them had a little sign next to it saying #1 in chrome. Now I know how truckers love their chrome sometimes, but on the electronics, we're #1 in chrome. That is so weird to me. It's like an alternate universe that exists in this world of electronics. It just blew my mind. I was like, we're #1 in chrome. That is so weird. It's so weird to me. I love it. I love it. I love it. Elvis, top 50 hits, solid. Showcased by Patsy Cline, excellent choice. Let me know if you want to talk about that some more. Johnny Cash remaster of the songs that made him famous, excellent choice from Sun Records, nice. Some CCR, can't go wrong, and a rock band from my country. That sounds cool. That sounds like a great haul. Todd, are you also live on TikTok? No, we are on TikTok, but not right this second. I have TikTok, and basically what I do is I make short videos for YouTube, and then I also upload them on Facebook. Or no, I don't do Facebook. I also upload them on Instagram. There it is, and TikTok. Sorry, still waking up a little bit. Sorry, I had a really great night's sleep, and I'm still kind of recovering from it. I needed a good night's sleep after all that rowing. But yeah, so I tried going live once on both platforms, and apparently that's against terms and conditions for at least one of those platforms. So I had to stop doing that. But yeah. Hey, Jaime, welcome in. Good morning. Bit curious. What's the oldest 8-track? I don't have any. I'm trying to think if I have any of the old Lear. Well, because the oldest ones will say Learjet on them, and I don't know if I have any quite that old. I don't think I do. Look at this. This is a weird one. Wizard of Oz. Like a 70s Wizard of Oz, 1972 soundtrack. Yeah. I like these ones that have these like kind of indent areas. You can see the tape's tapered a little bit. It makes it easier to pull out of the minute. Here's another Beatles one. I forgot I had this. Magical Mystery Tour. Maybe my second favorite Beatles album. That's an unpopular opinion. My favorite is Sgt. Pepper's, and this may be my second favorite. And there's more down. Yeah, well, let's see. I don't have tons and tons and tons. I didn't want to. When we were moving from when we moved from Colorado, I tried to get rid of as much as I could, and I was able to donate or sell or gift a lot of record players, like truckload of records. So many review units. Everybody that I know got at least one, and we donated a bunch. We sold a few. When I sold my 1917 Vita Nola hand crank phonograph, I love that thing, but I viewed myself not as an owner of it, but as a steward of it for a period of time. Found somebody who really, really enjoyed it out in the country. They wanted it. And this is back in Colorado. And I gave them, in addition to when they bought the unit, they also got a stack of records. So I took all the 78s I was never going to listen to, mostly classical or opera or just really old stuff. And I love old music. I love it. But for me, for 78s, what I really wanted to retain were the big bands, the pop vocal stuff, the jazz stuff. A couple early examples. I kept the diamond discs. I kept a couple like one-sided things, really old things, a Pathé record, the things that were super unique. But I had quite a horde of 78s I would never listen to. Same thing goes with the 8-tracks. I had accumulated a bunch that I would never listen to, so there was no reason to keep them. So a couple of interesting things. So we always see the Reader's Digest record sets with the box and all that, but they also did it on 8-track. I don't know why the label's upside down. And they came in these plastic boxes. Isn't that weird? And then you'd get 3 tapes instead of 6 records or whatever. I don't know why the label is upside down. The beautiful sounds of today. And what's ironic is I have a Reader's Digest set in here, of course, but it's the wrong set. I've got Remembering the 40s. See how the labels look like they've been sitting in the bathtub too long or something? Apparently that's a problem with a lot of 8-track. I've heard that it's like the glue drying up. Almost looks like water damage, though. Reader's Digest, Stereo 8. This is a great set. So I've got all 3 tapes to that. You can't have 8 tracks without Elvis. You just can't. Everybody's got, if you've got 8 tracks, you've got Elvis. This is a sleeve to a blank. TDK, wide dynamic range. And inside, this is another free design. There's like a vocal group. It's like I think it's like a Christian vocal group that kind of had a moment. Kind of like the Christian Mamas and Papas. Interesting, right? This is another Fardamark original creation there, I believe. Look at this. Wild and crazy hits. Wild and crazy. This is something you just throw on in the car. You know what I mean? This wasn't targeted towards the high fidelity music connoisseur. This is something to throw on in the car. Ray Conniff. Look at that. Look at that label. Discolored. This is amazingly clean. Best of Glenn Miller, Volume 3. Does not have the crinkled label too much. A little bit on the bottom there. But look at that. No discoloration. I think there's a lot of... I had a lot of trucker songs on 8-track. Yeah, that's what I think of, like truckers and stuff. We had a dear member of the family who's sadly no longer with us, was a trucker. And so I have a soft spot in my heart for truckers. But yeah, I think of like truckers and stuff. Loretta Lynn's Greatest Hits. Patsy Cline, Adjacent. If you go down the Patsy Cline route, you will probably at least hear of Loretta Lynn. Kind of took the mantle from Patsy Cline after her passing. They were friends. Interesting story. Loretta Lynn owned a pair of Patsy Cline's underwear, which is weird. Columbia Musical Treasury, the golden age of country music. Wasn't planning on doing an 8-track show today, but it's kind of fun. I don't think of these that often, so it's kind of good excuse to get them out. This one is really interesting. The cassette's actually coming apart a little bit. Look at that. All-time greatest hits of Roy Orbison. Love Roy Orbison. Interesting. Also interesting that the tape is going on the outside of the shell. It's not supposed to do that. This tape needs a little bit of work. I think that's one of the detractors of 8-track is that it does take maintenance. Oh, sorry, just leaning down here trying to put this back. It's not a format that you can just hop on and know it's going to work. You know, it is a high maintenance format. I do have other 8-tracks, but those are the ones that are handy. I don't have a ton. You know, I don't need to have a lot. I'm getting to the point kind of all the way around where I don't need to have a lot of anything. Because I do already. I've just accumulated, and I don't want to be a hoarder. You know what I mean? I don't want to be having a burden. I don't want to leave a burden to my family. You know, I don't want them to be like, or they are going to be burdened, you know, if they have to deal with all this stuff. But I try to have stuff that I listen to. And what I don't enjoy, what I don't actually want, needs to go away. Needs to find a new home. That's my approach. Morse was electrophonic. Interesting. Have you had any chance to look at the new Iowa boombox? I think I've seen it. I think I've seen it briefly. They're also selling Iowa portable CD players again. So I'm pretty sure somebody bought the Iowa name. That's what I'm thinking happened. That's not necessarily bad. I kind of think that's what's going on. Todd says Yorks is another brand that is like sounding. Yeah, I remember Yorks. Do you remember White Westinghouse? I think it was a Kmart brand. White Westinghouse. Yeah, I remember Yorks. Wings Over America double pack. Do you have a player for them, or do you just have it as a collector's item? My friend was doing the trash and Paul McCartney found it home. Oh no, that's terrible. 8-tracks were a pain. The players ate them, and yeah, exactly. You have to do repairs and stuff. Yeah, that's interesting, Fast Hunter. It's really interesting stuff. I don't know if you were on the live last night, but I told the story. My parents went to see a Johnny Cash concert, and he was in Denver. And I think my mom had a little camera with flash bulbs. And right as he was taking bows at the end of the show, my dad pushed my mom in a friendly way towards the front so she could see better and told her to take a picture. So right as Johnny Cash is bending over to take his bow, boom, takes a picture, the flash bulb goes off. So we've got this family heirloom of a rather grouchy and unamused looking Johnny Cash looking into this flash bulb in his face. There you go. Melted pinch rollers. Yep, that's a thing too. It's an interesting format. It really, really is. But it's kind of fun bouncing around between the different formats. When I started this channel, I had no idea it would be anything other than records. The whole point of the show, the whole point of Recordology originally was going to be record archaeology, and that's where the name came from, Recordology. We were going to find because I didn't ever think that I could, I didn't understand how YouTube worked. I didn't understand how reviews worked, and it never even crossed my mind that I could get a review product or a sample, or be able to go buy equipment for review. And as such, I thought to myself, well, I need a record player. and I was given one, and then for my birthday, and it was a very basic unit, which I was just so excited to have it. I was so excited. I love it. Still love it. And a couple of years later, somebody else gave me a wooden all-in-one. So if you look at some of the, or maybe it was a year later, if you look at some of the early Recordology, I've got my setup, and I thought it was so fancy. I felt so, the fact that I had two record players side by side. I had the first one, and then I both had Skywind mechanisms. Both were ceramic cartridges. Barely knew what that even meant at that point. The wooden all-in-one, and I just thought, I was like, this is too cool for school. This is the coolest thing. And so I'm like, this is great. I felt like I had a very fancy setup. And you know what? It was fancy for what it was. It was fancy. The whole world of hi-fi and snobs and the gatekeepers list hadn't penetrated my, I was very green. I mean, let's just say that. There's something good about being naive about bad people. Not bad people. People doing bad things, being snotty and whatnot. So I was going to focus just on the records. I'm like, well, records are fairly cheap because I knew they were at thrift stores. I knew they were at antique stores. I ended up finding more than I did a few shows early days where I was finding records in our attic and basement that I had no idea we even had. They were just like boxes that have been toted around for generations. And we were in the process of downsizing and moving. And sure enough, I was uncovering. I did shows called. Remember, I did a show like record hunting in your own basement or in your own garage or something like that. And it was what it was all about. It was like savoring, like what I would look now at with not as much appreciation and not as much awe and interest as I did back then, like a stack of records, whatever. There's nothing here to throw. Back then, it was like, every record was a treasure. If it was scratched, it didn't matter. If it was damaged, whatever genre it was like, what is this? What year was this made? What does it sound like? Can we get some sound off of this record? And it was like that archaeology. And that was my whole thing. That's what I wanted to share with folks, was just that experience, which I thought was pretty unique. I didn't think a lot of other people were doing that on YouTube, because this is one of the few things in my life, two distinct things that differentiates this from a lot of things in my life. Number one, it's lasted way longer. I thought this would be a couple of months kind of a project. Usually my ADD mind gets super, super into something, and then I move on to something else. Like I burn it out and I move on to another topic. But Recordology is this perfect chemistry of being new, being creative to a degree, being historical and ever changing, that it kind of stays, in my collective conscience as something that I can keep doing. So number one, I thought that, this is something that would be different. Number two, just the affordability of it and having like a, something that was sustainable. I could always find new records. I could always find, something without, too significant of an investment that I could share with folks, and hopefully that they would like it, and keep it all beginner related, because there just wasn't a lot of that on YouTube. There still isn't a lot on YouTube. There you go. I don't know why I went down that road. But what happened was, started getting contacted by companies. Well, initially, I remember I was reaching out to companies like, hey, can we review your record player? I didn't even really know if that was a thing, but I thought I would try it. And nobody was saying yes. Everybody was just ignoring. Ironically, Crosley, for a couple of years, was just like, no, we all of our samples have been sent out. But a representative for Victrola was the first person to reach out. Could not believe. When I got my first record sample, I was like, record player sample. It felt, and it was such an honor to be able to do that. That anybody would care what my opinion was about something. Like, what am I? I don't know anything. And that's the other thing too, is I was never an expert. I was always just a guy. I was always just, hopefully one of you. and one of everybody, and we were just sort of doing this together. I've always wanted this to be very collaborative, very much I'm learning from you as much as you're learning from me, and we're just hanging out. We're just having fun, like we are today. I have no agenda. I'm not trying to, there's no agenda other than I wanted to hang out with you guys. If I can get a hold of it, I will. My dad has it. I think he's got it, a picture of the picture. But yeah, maybe I'll post that when he's in. Jaime says, what channels do I follow on YouTube? Probably the same ones most of us do. I watch Techmoan. I watch 8-Bit Guy. I watch his brother's channel, the Time Rift Arcade. I watch Adam the Woo. Which, by the way, if you're a Back to the Future fan, this thing they did in Universal Studios Hollywood, man, I wish they would do something like that here in Orlando. They did this Back to the Future Fan Fest thing where they turned Hill Valley into like the 50s version of Hill Valley, and they had actors and music, and the whole thing was done up like the 50s, and everybody could walk around in Hill Valley. A dream come true to be there. And the video, if you want to go check out that video, I would do it. Adam the Woo. So I watch him. I watch Channel 33 sometimes. Trying to think. I should probably look at my phone. It would probably be a good way to. I watch a lot of non-record player content too. I have a bunch of hobbies, not just record players. Curly's grandson, the grandson of Curly of the Three Stooges, great channel. I watch the Carpetbagger. Via Westlife. I love his videos. Let's see here. I watch some of this United States of Audio stuff. Tom Wilson's channel. Let's see who else. And a bunch of others. I have a lot. World of Micah. I've got a lot of YouTube stuff that I like to watch. Oh, thank you, Ivy Music. I appreciate it. I've heard a lot from a lot of people. They are into the high end. They are audiophiles, but they want to see what's happening at the bottom of the totem pole. It's just fun. I just have fun with it. You know what I mean? I just have fun. I'm grateful to be able to present any of this. I'm really grateful. Oh, that's cool, Fast Hunter. That's interesting. Oh, that's cool, Steve. And welcome in, by the way. Oh, Laverne, I appreciate that. I really, really do. It's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because I feel like most people are obviously... Hold on one second, guys. Most people, I feel like, are into the new stuff. Most people are into the new stuff, and a lot of pop and rock, and I'm not as much into that, as you can see behind me. I would much rather have a Disney picture disc than the latest pop stuff in most cases. And it's like, I think that is cool for kindred spirits like us. But there's definitely, appealing to a lot of the public out there. I feel like it kind of isolates us from that a little bit. It's really an amazing thing, Fast Hunter. You bring up a good point. When you can connect with somebody from an older generation that is into a technology or a history or whatever it's into, and they just appreciate the fact that somebody wants to listen, that somebody cares. And that's more important than the actual thing, the story, any of that. A great example of that is when I was I had an incredible, and I'm still thankfully in contact with them from time to time, history teacher at junior high. And I had never been really interested in a subject or passionate about anything. And he lit a fire within my soul about history, just history in general. Incredible class, incredible class. I remember we did this one thing. It was an Ellis Island lesson, but instead of just lecturing to us, he created an Ellis Island processing center in the classroom. We had identity cards and we were getting sent to this station, that station to teach us. He would bring in war veterans to talk about things. When we were doing the Civil War, he brought in an actual Civil War reenactment group with a cannon, and we fired it, and we had positions, and we had to do all the different things. And in subsequent years, he took kids on field trips to the battlefields, and it was just incredible stuff. That like just absolutely mind-boggling, incredible. Lit a fire within me, and that kind of grew and grew. One of my interests has been World War II history, and I remember one of my first jobs. I was working at a fast food place, and there was a contingent of World War II era veterans that would meet there early in the morning. This was 90s when World War II veterans were, more of them were with us. And they would meet there like 5 a.m., have coffee, and sit there for hours and just talk. And one of them actually decided to work there. And most of the kids, because that's what we were that worked there, just ignored him. They were like, yeah, he's an old guy, whatever. But I got to know him. He was friendly and a very sweet man, long gone now. And he was just surprised that anybody wanted to listen to him. You know what I mean? And he told me his war stories, and the stories he told were incredible, absolutely incredible. Like, you know, it's amazing. And then I got to know the larger group, and I would sit down on my lunch breaks. I would sit down with them and listen to them. And these guys had fought with Patton. They had marched over, North Africa. They had been in, Germany, France. It was just incredible, incredible stories, living history. They were just largely ignored by anybody but their own group. And I would sit there and I would talk to them. I even went to I got so into it for a while. I was even going to nursing homes, seeking out people that I could talk to. I was just looking for those opportunities. There was in Denver, there's a fantastic air and space museum called Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum. And I volunteered my time there on the weekends. I would go there on Saturday mornings. My routine was I would get up at my Camaro with the cassette player in it. I'd play some Glenn Miller music. I'd go to Burger King, get a Burger King breakfast, a sausage croissant with the hash browns. Sometimes if I was feeling frisky, an extra hash brown with orange juice. And I would drive out to Aurora, and I would go out to the Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum, which was from the old Lowry Air Base that was out there. Now it's been converted into housing, but the old hangars are still there. And when the Army or when the Air Force abandoned it, or how do you say that? They didn't abandon it, but they decommissioned it. They left the aircraft behind. So there's a hangar full. One of the hangars was, last time I checked, was still owned by the military and used for storage. It was lock and key. And the other one was the museum, which scenes from the Glenn Miller story were filmed inside of there. It's got a lot of history. It was a photo reconnaissance base, so they have an archive, hundreds of thousands of photographs and things. Amazing storied history going back into the 30s. I think the base goes back to the 20s. I mean, it's a very storied area. Anyway, I volunteered at this Air and Space Museum, and a lot of guys working there were veterans. And again, the fact that some kid wanted to listen to this stuff was a very novel thing for them. Mostly ignored by people of my generation. So all that to say this, it's really great when you can connect with somebody because it makes them feel special, which they should. They are special. And that's the best way to hand down something, isn't it? Like a record player or whatever. I remember one of the guys that I got to know at the Air and Space Museum was a B-17 bomber pilot. And he was telling me the stories of, he was 17. He was one of those guys that lied about his age. He gave me a copy of his diary, just an amazing relationship. But, people that actually care to connect with folks, sadly, it's a rare thing, but I think that it's sometimes the most beneficial thing. I think having an attitude of humility where you want to learn from people puts you in such a better position than the default mechanism that a lot of people have, where they're like artificially trying to sound confident and arrogant. And I already know everything. I'll tell you what's right. I'll tell you what's wrong. That's such a self-destructive mindset, because it prohibits you from actually learning and actually having experiences. When I was in television, there was a guy that ended up becoming a mentor of mine, not just a friend, but a mentor. And he was from Central America, is from Central America. Brilliant. But for whatever reason, a lot of people would just roll their eyes at the mention of him talking, because it was so detailed and it was so above the level that they were at. And for me, it was the opposite. I was enthralled. I was like, okay, I got my foot in the door of television. I need to learn from the experts. And I would just sit there for hours and listen to him. He was an Emmy award-winning, and he wouldn't even tell you. He wasn't like most people be like, oh yeah, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm an Emmy award-winning filmmaker. No, I didn't even know this for years, because he didn't brag at all. He had the complete, wonderful man of God too, incredible person. But he was like, you're the only person that wants to actually talk to me and listen, which blows my mind that people, how much stuff do we just blatantly ignore in life because we're too arrogant to listen? It's sad. It's really sad. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on my soapbox. I'm going to get off my soapbox. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. Living in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Yeah, I bet that is really cool. Oh yeah, Fredericksburg. That's big time. I've only been to one Civil War battlefield. Now, that teacher I talked about before, he actually he started doing yearly trips to Gettysburg. Gettysburg is the battlefield the battle that I have studied in incredible detail. Incredible detail. I'm very familiar with it. I love the 1993 movie. Great soundtrack, by the way. But I studied it in incredible, incredible detail. So I was kind of bummed when he started doing those trips, and I found out years later he did that. He's since retired, but man, I would have loved that. I would have loved that. In fact, I really grew to have an interest in that particular battle because of him. So it's kind of his fault that I was interested in the first place. The only battlefield I've been able to go onto, I think, is the only one. It was Wilson's Creek in Springfield, Missouri. And I did get to go there during the height of near the height of my interest in the topic, which was like the mid to late 90s. And I was like, when did I go there first? 94. That was right when I was super into Civil War, interesting history and stuff. And oh yeah, Killer Angels and his son carrying on the tradition with all the other books. Working right now through which one was it? The one before Gods and Generals, prequel. But anyway, the day we rolled into that battlefield, they had firing cannons. Oh yeah, and that teacher also invited us to go. I was one of the few students that actually wanted to go to the reenactment, so I went and played an injured soldier one day, laying in a tent with a bunch of reenactors that were dressed. Period. I had a Mo Howard shirt on, so I didn't really fit in, but it was really cool being in there. Hallowed ground. Just, I don't have a strong spiritual sense. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm a Christian. All for Jesus. But I don't have saying spiritual sense isn't the right word. I don't have a very strong sixth sense. I don't have a very strong sense of auras. How to describe it. My wife, on the other hand, is very keen to those things. And even I, when I step foot on the battlefield, could feel a sense of I don't know how to describe it, like a sense of solemn reverence, if that makes any sense. Hey, Scott, welcome in. I was talking Civil War. I don't know how we got here. A sense of magnitude of the importance of what happened there, the people that gave their lives, what they were fighting for. And you feel it. You feel it. I've only a couple times in my life felt something like that. The other time, one of the most negative auras, or I don't know if that's a word either, feelings, like non-physical feelings that I've ever felt, was when I was on the Queen Mary ship in Long Beach. And they have this propeller room where you can walk into this cutout where they've got the thing and you can look down in the water and see. I haven't felt, the whole ship felt kind of like an eerie, oppressive feeling. But that part especially, it was weird. I'm like, I want to leave. I don't know what it is. I love the history. I love maritime history. I'm a big Titanic historian too. I love that stuff. Studying about it. It's an amazing story. But I just was like, I got to get off the ship. And we ended up doing this haunted tour. To make it work, we had this person is like, oh, we have this haunted tour. And we had small kids at the time. And we're like, the kids should do that? Like, oh, yeah, it's family friendly. The kids will be fine. And so they've turned the ship, part of it at that time, into a haunted thing with all this multimedia lights and sounds and fog. Very well done. I'd love to go back and do it now. I would go in there. But it was way too much for the kids. It was way too over the top. It was intense. And so we ended up departing the tour back when they were down in the engine room. So we're in the bowels of the ship. And we're like, you know what? This is just too much for the kids. We got to go. How do we get out? And they're like, okay, no problem. See those stairs over there? Just go up that stairs, follow it up to the top, down the hall, take a left, then a right, and you're out. Okay, I think we can follow those instructions. An hour of being lost on that ship ensued. Locked doors, empty hallways. If you ever look down the hallway of a ship, like I forget what they call it, there's a curvature to it. So you look down the hallway, it looks like something out of like a Stephen King thing. I'm expecting like, whatever. And it's not like a straight hallway like in a hotel. It dips down, which is really strange to see. Locked doors. It was like a puzzle. The kids are starting to freak out more by the second. We're just trying to get out. It's quite an experience. Yeah, good. I would love to visit Fredericksburg. That's cool, Laverne. And that's the thing, too, is I thought I would just have some Glenn Miller records because I love Glenn Miller. But now I've got so many genres. I've got Hawaiian music, rock and pop. Beatles has its own section. Glenn Miller, Elvis, orchestral music, big band music, Christmas music, pop vocals, Patsy Cline section. I've got not many people have a Jackie Gleason section. That's great music just to put on and work by. Opera, jazz, soundtracks, kids music, miscellaneous, and others that I can't even think of. I love it all. It's just fun. Steve, that's interesting. Yeah, and when you live in a place that has a lot of something, you do end up taking it for granted. But it's an amazing. There's so much history. My husband was stationed in Charleston. Wow. And I know there's a lot of history there. There's so many places on the East Coast I need to explore. I've been to Washington, D.C. a couple of times, 2-3 times. And I've been to in and out of a couple airports in the area. I've been to Virginia a little bit. I had this amazing trip. I don't know if you guys ever did a school trip to D.C., but I was part of a program. It was in the 90s when I was in high school. And they did this thing where you could go to Washington, D.C. as part of a program that gave you your government credits. Because we had to have either had to have one semester. Was it one semester? I think it was one semester of government, or you could do this class. So I opted for the class. And if you're in a public school, there's always trips that my family could never afford to do. Like, oh, the French class is going to France, or we're going to go do this. We're going to Italy. Never, ever. usually avoid those meetings, like meet after school and find out about our trip to, Spain, and, just be depressing because I knew I'd never be able to afford to go there. Well, I did go to one about this special thing. Stay after class and we'll tell you about this opportunity. And they sell it like it's incredible. And it was an incredible trip. And I remember going home, and I like to think of myself as a good salesman. I pitched this thing like, this will help you. Trust me, it'll help you. And it cost, I think, like probably a couple grand, which is a lot of money back then for us. It was a lot, still is. It still is a lot of money. And they somehow made it happen. I don't know how they made it happen. I'm sure there was sacrifice that I'll probably never understand. But I got to go on this trip. Now, unfortunately, I ended up in the hospital with a punctured lung. That's a separate story beforehand. So I was a little ill during the trip. I had a little portable nebulizer, one of the world's first portable nebulizers. But I went on this trip. It was February, and it was freezing there in DC. Humidity with snow. It was the first time I'd ever experienced that, being from Colorado. And it was a wild time. We got to do so much stuff. I was in the White House. Funny story about the White House. I actually got asked to leave in a weird way because like the White House tour was amazing. I remember you get in this line, queued up. I don't even know if they do tours of the White House anymore. This is pre 9/11. And everybody was queued up, and they had these signs, these ridiculous things like, don't bring these things. Like anybody would have them anyways. Weird. Get queued up through this. Was it my dad? I think I was by myself. Because my dad was with, no. Yeah. This is a separate, I'm thinking of a separate trip. So, because I went to DC with my dad a couple of times. But no, this particular school trip, I was on my own. And I go into the White House. Like, this is the purple room, the green room, the blue room, whatever. And you're just like, I'm in the White House. I'm in the White House. I remember the hallways, they had partitions, like those like zigzag dressing partition things down the hall. So you couldn't see if anybody was, I guess the president wasn't there while we were there anyway, but they kind of have it privacy blocked off. But still, they took us through it. But I swear that whole tour lasted about 45 seconds. Literally probably less than 5 minutes, probably 3 or 4 minutes. It felt like 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden, they open a door, and I'm standing on the back patio thing. And they're like, have a good day. Click. And I literally was like, wait, what? Are we done? That was it. I think I even tried to go back. The door was locked or something. It was very strange. But we went to the Supreme Court. We got to see Congress, the Senate floor. We went in the little underground subway system. They have not the metro, which is really cool, but they have like a little thing that takes you from like these buildings that surround the Capitol have these little tunnels underneath with these little like coal mine car things, and the modern versions, very 50s, very Eisenhower-esque, very like teal tiles on the wall, cinder blocks and stuff. And you go through these little tunnels on these little miniature train things. We got to see all this. We got to go to all the monuments. Went up in the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the Capitol building, all over. Got tours of that. And it was absolutely a phenomenal experience. I loved it. Oh, a trip to Belfast. Oh, a dream come true. I would be honored to go there. Really? Christmas of 2022. Wow. Shoot me an email, Steve. Recordology1938@gmail.com. Love to see that. That is so cool. But yeah, that's what's going on. Recordology-wise, what's coming up? Shoot. I do have another FIO product to review. I've got a little FM radio I need to review. I have a cable that has been sitting in there for months that is nobody wants to watch a show about a cable. So I got to figure out if I'm going to do it as short or roll it into something else. I have a little black book full of other ideas. We've got turntable reviews coming up. We've got a number of vintage CD players coming. You'll notice oftentimes you'll see a certain product make the rounds on all the channels. And so there's this weird looking little CD player thing that kind of looks like an external CD-ROM drive going around. I've got one of those coming to review. and a few other things. Definitely no shortage of content. So working on some of that. Get something up midweek probably. Rather than do a full-blown show this weekend, we did the 2 lives. We did the giveaway yesterday. We gave away this record, actually. Congrats to the winner. Sealed copy of the Beatles' Now and Then single. And, yeah, I just want to let you guys know that I appreciate you so much. I'm very grateful for you being there and watching and spending time. And, yeah, absolutely. Have you ever listened to the band called Boy Genius? No, I have not. I'll have to check that out. Thanks for the tip. Appreciate it. Well, my friends, that's going to do it. Have a great rest of the weekend. We've got pretty much all of Sunday in front of us. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Happy record hunting, and we will see you next time.